my skin. I hear my heart beating within. I feel the spirit in the wind. Bigger than what I see in front of me, deeper than the valleys below my feet. I'm in between two worlds that meet. This is a spiritual war. This is a spiritual war. Everybody's choosing sides, trying hard to justify. They lock the doors and stay inside. This is a spiritual war. It's not against flesh or blood. One heart, one mind, one love. It's time to rise up with the sun. This is a spiritual war. 'Cause it's a spiritual war. This is a spiritual war. This is a spiritual war. This is a spiritual war. Take the blue, the red. You wanna be alive or you wanna be whack. Ain't nobody got the time to listen to the truth they said. 'Cause all the truth they fed is manipulated, jaded, and fake. The world's got a lot of things to offer. If I only bow down and give myself a profit. I see the diamonds, gold, and all these fancy dollars, and whatever else they try to cough up, all just to keep me locked up. But I ain't gon' run with it, I ain't gon' talk like them. I ain't gon' play around sitting singing songs with them. I ain't gon' live like that, in the pit of hell with my so-called ball of hair. I ain't gon' do that, I'ma play the game different. Ain't no shame with it, I'ma win with no chains on me. Holding on to victory as I walk in peace. I talk with authority, knowing who I am and it ain't boring me.
Feeling a change coming. I'm feeling a change coming. Right here, I'm feeling a change. I'm feeling a change all around me. No doubt, I'm feeling a change. I'm feeling a change running down me. Been a long time coming, long time.
Well, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Welcome to the LeCape Livestream podcast. We have been going here live ever since we got trapped at home. It is such a great time to be able to be here with you guys. We're going to give a couple seconds here for those of you who just saw the countdown and thought, my goodness, I'm going to go and make a burrito in the microwave. So we're going to go ahead and just wait for you guys as you're kind of hopping online. And if this is the first time you guys have been on the LeCape podcast, every weekday at 9 p.m. during the month of April, we have been going live. Typically, I'm going to just, I cover everything from team strategic, just from a team, ways that leaders can actually, again, modify their teams to work into a new online culture. And we also deal with the technical side too, how we can basically help transition people through. So again, it's like we've been doing this on Facebook, highlighting a lot of techniques and tips and tricks that we've been doing throughout the process. But one of the things that's just been on my mind, and it actually came as a result of one of the friends of mine, was, again, to start bringing in people to kind of hear their stories. I think we're at a point where we can really reflect on what's going on. And right before I hop into that segment, I do want to also remind you guys, we always have the Livestream Church group that we've been going live to. It's a place where I'm literally the secret things across the web that I'm to get different notifications. That's where you will hear some of the secret features Instagram's going to be launching. Anytime I pop news, I'm a news file, newsy, news junkie, you want to call it. So that's where I place all of those things. If you got questions, throw them my way, but otherwise we'll just be getting some stream of consciousness stuff, which is great. But let's just jump right into it. So the first person I'm going to invite here is Alex Lyons. He is running the Just Winging It podcast. I'm going to intro him in just a second, and really I'm let him intro himself because he's got a lot of crazy stories. Even the fact of us both starting together, which I'll get into when we're live with him. But it's it's funny. He invited me onto his podcast. I'll be this Sunday on his. So if you haven't checked out his podcast, it's Just Winging It. The podcast, like we'll have links here in the comments. But yeah, it's been a great experience just kind of getting to work with him years. We've done some crazy projects together. Always kind of considered him as, both a friend, but also one of the, most operationally minded guys that I know. So we're going to quick bring him on in here. So this is our first time doing a live interview. Mr. Alec Lyons, it's a pleasure to be able to talk with you on a podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm here in my studio, aka my office, with my wife's sewing machine. This is the room they let me be in for the past 5 weeks. Just winging it, man. That's when I'm here. Here in the studio. I appreciate you bringing me on, man, and I'm excited and thankful for our friendship over the years, and thankful for what the Lord is leading you to do through your live stream in church, and excited what is going to happen through your ministry in the weeks and months ahead, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah, no.
Thank you, man. No, it is crazy that doing this kind of stuff for the time frame. Just to basically make crazy plays and transition in real time. Even right now, me trying to communicate and just that there's a live choppy audio thing that I'm sitting here and fixing.
But why don't you go ahead and
just tell us a bit about yourself and kind of.
Yeah, I have a wife and 3 kids. I am recently moved to the state of South Carolina via way of Nashville, and before that Chicago, where John and I knew each other. I'm currently, in addition to doing the Just Winging It podcast, and you're seeing it here live, guys, that live streaming, sometimes you just got to wing it and adjust stuff on the fly, and that's what it is. But in addition to doing the Just Winging It podcast, I'm the creative director of the South Carolina Baptist Convention, where I help serve 2,100 South Carolina Baptist churches and assist them in the realm of all things creative, from video to social to design to web design, each and everything in between. So South Carolina Baptist churches are autonomous, so we can give them advice and direction, but we can't say you are going to do this. And so that's kind of the same spirit of kind of what John and I are talking today, that we're not mandating that you do these things, but we're kind of giving you some advice, and hopefully through our experience and through the ways that we've failed and the ways that we've winged it along the way, you can learn something from this and be able to use it in whatever context of what you're doing. So
yeah, no, and I think it's interesting to kind of hear the fact that we all were thrown up for a loop when March came around, and we're just like, my goodness, I know for me it was like I kind of saw it coming and tried to get some of our leaders. I came off as the alarmist guy who's like, hey, I'm going to start throwing things in the air. We got to start doing stuff here, and I know for our church it was just kind of like a starting from scratch type moment. But tell me a little bit about like your experience. I mean, because I know this is a relatively newer position for you, but not really, because I mean you've been kind of like, again, managing just crazy stuff over the years. So like, how was that transition for you?
Yeah, so I was in the office for 10 days physically before the lockdown started to happen. It wasn't really lockdown; it just our leadership recommended that we telecommute, so that way everybody would be safe. But yeah, I mean, a transition to a new state, a new context, but utilizing the skills that I've developed over the years to be able to help churches. South Carolina is a lot of different kinds of churches that we interact with. We have several mega churches that have their own video teams and their own whole slew of video equipment. So we kind of partner with them a little bit, but we really try to facilitate and resource the smaller churches that may not necessarily have a lot of resources. We like to say that, any church, any size can be able to, saturate and transform the state of South Carolina with the gospel. And so like first couple of weeks, we had some churches that were streaming their video upside down. So some churches that were didn't have internet, so in the mountains and some of the rural areas there wasn't really good connectivity, so they developed maybe analog ways. Like one pastor recorded his message on a 20-minute cassette tape on his answer machine and had his parishioners call in to listen to the sermon. So it just, to me, what the greatest thing about this right now, John, is that I'm excited because it's forced the status quo to go, and it's forced people to think about a new and innovative way to try something new. And since nobody is an expert, maybe there's people that are more experienced at live streaming and OBS and etc. Nobody has pinpointed exactly how to be a successful church during quarantine. And so thus there's some freedom to that, because there's no FOMO or comparing yourself of this church, or what is Willow Creek doing, or what is New Spring doing, or what is Saddleback doing, because there is no the go-to church of quarantine live streaming. Everybody's figuring it out on the fly. Everybody is winging it. That's why we call our podcast Just Winging It, because we hope it could be a resource to people that are listening to, oh, that's a good idea. And the ability to try something new in an innovative way, to be able to hack something, to be able to just kind of shift, has been great to see, people learning how to use FM transmitters in parking lots to be able to, broadcast in their, parking lot when everybody's in their car, being able to, utilize, learn about OBS and, and Twitch and these things that were before dedicated to maybe much more video game realms, but have now been adopted and grafted into church media life, has been really, really cool to see.
Yeah. No, and I think it's funny you made a comment there when you were talking about how there's not really, there's not really a gold standard here of people who are dealing with it. And it just struck with me because I'm like, I remembered, checking out literally the things that were coming out of out of Fast Company, like all these major magazines, even the news, that it was just like, they were like, put the person on with their iPhone. And I was just like, wow. And of course, the people who are dominating right now are the YouTube gamers. They already have their home studio setups, they already are creating great content. But nobody was like, they were just stuck again in tunnel vision, this is what we're doing. And I remember thinking to myself, that it was what a significant moment this was for the church, because I'm like, right now the church, literally it's the only place that's risking it all to get everything online because it's make or break for them. Disney doesn't need to do that. They have a library of all this content, over the years that they've built. They have all these TV shows that they were already in post-production that they'll still complete, remotely. But it's the church is no, we got to get community back together. And so it's and that's what really connected us. I remember the moment where you just kind of, where our lives just connected back again. And I was just thinking this is a unique time. We're just diving 100% in on all of this stuff. So.
Absolutely, man. The move of God called the Reformation 500 years ago was spurred on by a piece of technology called the printing press that allowed the word of God to be in the hands of people for the very first time that never had the opportunity to be a part of it. And that was through a piece of technology. It was through a pastor who felt the Lord was leading him, a priest, Martin Luther, feeling that the Lord was leading him to reform the church. But if it weren't for that piece of technology and Johann Gutenberg knowing how to use that piece of technology, the Reformation might have not occurred. And I see what we're in right now as where us as Gutenbergs are partnering with the Luthers and pastors to be able to spur on what God would have next. This is a very catalytic moment in history that we will remember for a while, and how the church is responding to it as a whole. 10 years, it's the meme that's been on there, the dog saying, 10 years ago, church members groveling Facebook is of the devil. And now, 10 years later, join us online for our Facebook Live service. And so it's great to see, because I see that there's a lot of potential. And even as we transition and open back up, or whatever terminology you want to utilize, to me, I see that now people are susceptible and are listening to the digital channels that a church has, and churches are realizing it's not all my eggs aren't in the one Sunday, that I have 167 hours throughout the week to utilize and leverage technology to communicate to my congregation, to disciple them, to motivate them, to encourage them, to pray for them, to teach them. And to me, that's just super exciting that the tech people who have literally, like John and I, who have been banging our heads on the wall or been saying, excuse me, you should try this thing. And they're like, no, stop, are actually listening to us now. And to me, there's a great mantle that's, like we need to make sure that we're using this time wisely, but God has prepared us for such a time as this to do that. And that's just really exciting for me. I'm fired up, if you can't see, obviously.
Yeah, no, and I think it's fascinating because if you think about it too, you made that comment that it's like a lot of the people who are like, Facebook is of the devil. Now we all know that really it's Periscope is just of the devil, just that one, because it's only.
And Meerkat, don't forget Meerkat.
No, but no, it's fascinating because again, it's like, and you're mentioning the Gutenberg press. I feel like this is a moment where we can't just sit, idly by in our buildings and expect the gospel to go out. And I think right now, like, I feel like we've, not to use the term phase, because again, phase now has officially become a loaded term. But in a milestone in the church, it's like a lot of churches, or vast majority, I think, have stumbled their way, or leapt their way into online. Some were already doing it, and I know of a story of even a pastor in Guatemala who felt called to start an online church years ago and did it, and now like they're thriving. And then there's other ones who are just, they didn't have that, that move, but they are, leaping into it. But I think one of the things that excites me is the fact that it's like that again, siloing effect that happens, that the church, again, it's like, now that I've got these people, we're going to just pull them into this only specific platform, that it's like, we are beginning to see that it's just, again, like outreach, like this new season is not, how do I get my content onto online? How do I get the church to online? It's like, how do I reach people now? Because the traditional methods of like going, and bringing things door to door, to creating, again, opportunities and events, it's like now we've officially turned all that stuff upside down. So it's like, I remember, even a simple thing of like, I've heard stories of Easter, Easter happening essentially drive-by,
Yeah.
Like,
for sure.
I see even, Kyle, one of the guys that I see on Facebook all the time, Kyle, he's doing on with Calvary Church. Like I see his feed every day. It's like he's distributing food. And I'm like, that's amazing. And I feel like that is what excites me now, is like, what is that next outreach opportunity for the church that we need to leap on,
For sure. And I think like people who are in tech field, who have been in it for a while, I think there's certain intimidation where like, wow, look at these two guys that got like HD cameras and cinema grade cameras and they're live streaming and blah, 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 blah. And I have my shaky iPhone with my daughter's Mickey Mouse earphones and trying to make my voice not sound like Chewbacca because my computer's fan is too loud. And, I'm getting like 10 frames per second after my video took to 98%, it crashed 3 times in Premiere to, whatever. All that to say is that, to me, what's important in this time is that wherever your audience at, wherever people are at that are listening to this, just know that this is your broken and spilled out alabaster jar at the feet of Jesus, and the perfume that you poured out there is beautiful because he sees you, man. He sees what you're doing, and whether your footage is choppy or whether whatever, you're doing it unto the Lord, man. And just know that that it's not in vain, and you matter, and the tireless hours, it's one thing for this to happen, the pandemic to happen and us all be secluded. It's another thing for it to happen like in Easter season where, you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off anyways. And, it's just like the perfect convergence and storm, Like, anyways, but all that to say is that he sees you and he sees what you're doing, and I pray and I hope that, the tips that John has on his podcast will get you up to speed to be able to do what you do with to be able to feel equipped and confident to produce stuff for your church, but know that wherever you are in the process, it's beautiful and the Lord sees it, and it is your act of worship.
You know, and I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I think it's funny. I can say that at least for the past couple of years in this season of mine, I've been pretty, you know, I attended a church, help at a church, but in terms of seeing the internal workings of it, you know, it's kind of been more distant. And jumping in, you know, when all these things came in and going in 100%, I think that feeling of like the alabaster jar moment is so critical for so many people who are serving at the church, both, and I'm talking from on the top all the way to the bottom. I know, you know, on the top, they're just like, we've got to keep this ship moving. You know, we've got to make sure to pull our troops together. Things, you know, like the pieces of the ship are falling apart, you know, like let's pull them back on. And then the people who are down there are just like, you know, in the trenches, you know, digital trenches of Premiere and of Final Cut and of all these technologies, and like Facebook's not letting us go online, or YouTube's not letting us go online, and you know, I think that it's kind of been a thing that I've felt. It's just I want teams to feel like appreciated, but I think you know, I talked with somebody today that just kind of encouraged me that they were, you know, they knew that this was a special moment for them, but they also knew that they were like, you know, burning the candle from both ends, you know, trying to make this massive play for the church as they're transitioning. But I think, you know, I definitely agree. Like, I think for all the people who are making in the church, like this is the one place, again, that's creating new content and is creating community. And I, you know, again, I'm grateful too for, you know, just getting to, you know, have some time with you as well, Alex, to just kind of hear your views on it. Cause I know, like, of all the people who hear a lot of what's going on in a lot of churches, you're one of those guys who's like, you know, I even remember just being a part of one of your smaller meetings and hearing just all the perspectives that these pastors, you know, are going through. And, you know, it's, again, you're that calming voice trying to bring in people to help push a thing forward. And so I've always, you know, like I said, appreciated that operations mindset that you have. And I appreciate you coming on here as well. And obviously, you know, for those of you guys who are watching this, whether now or you're watching it, because gosh darn it, it's, you know, almost 9:30 Central. You know, we got kids, we got babies going on here that we got to get to, you know, not to keep them up. But, you know, I want to, you know, make sure that, you know, you guys also check out his podcast. There's a lot of great resources, you know, that you've brought in. You've been pulling in a lot of people. Honestly, I remember you had mentioned, I think it was two weekends ago, you brought in someone from a TikTok influencer who had exploded. I know we sent a text message yesterday to some other ones that we had found, and I think
he's small potatoes compared to that guy, but anyway.
Yeah, no, and it's funny. It's like these are the next, again, what are our outreaches? And I think that is the, you know, again, where I just see it, you know, we need to be listening to what others are doing. We need to be talking and sharing, and not again, closing ourselves off to new ideas. Right now is the time to do whatever we can to, again, see the gospel accelerate. And, you know, I'm really appreciative for all the stuff that you're doing, and definitely, you know, hoping for, you know, just waiting to hear some amazing stories, you know, to get written out of all the things that we're doing these days.
Amen. Yeah. I'm thankful that, you know, a long way, John, from being back to back in a little mailroom, huh?
Yeah, man, it's incredible to think that
all y'all NXTers know what we're talking about. So
yeah, any NXTers who are on here, my goodness, that's where it all began, was in literally, you know, humble beginnings. You know, God doesn't take those in massive executive buildings. You know, he takes those who are willing in mail rooms who, you know, that desk was not built for two.
Don't forsake your humble beginnings. I think I read that in a book somewhere from something, you know. Yeah, well, thanks, John. I appreciate being a part of your thing, and I'm praying for whatever the Lord has for you, and wherever you are, you know, in your church, and whoever's listening in your church, just know that you are loved, you are seen, and you are not alone. And I'm just grateful to be a small part of what the Lord is doing through John in this live stream church.
Well, and likewise, thank you so much, Alex, for being on here. And for, again, check out his podcast here. I'm going to put that up there one more time. It's just Winging It, the podcast. We'll be posting up some stuff as well onto our page here, but check him out. Definitely been a blessing. Alex, as always, it's a pleasure. We will talk with you, man. Get some sleep. He is on the East Coast side, man. Just, you know, South Carolina doesn't give you much grace when it comes to time, but blessings to you, man, as well as to your family, and we will we'll catch you again, man. Thanks for joining
man.
us.
Bless you.
All right. Well, again, guys, that was LeCape Livestream podcast. Jump in here. Pardon me for that little interruption as we kind of get technical going through here. But again, we're going to be hopping offline here. But I wanted to, again, say thank you guys so much for joining us on the podcast. If you have not, again, subscribed, now is the perfect time. We are going to be doing some interesting interviews come tomorrow. We are actually going to be bringing in a worship leader, him and his wife. And they are the definitive remote worship leader at this stage in their life right now. And I think it's just really interesting to see God's story with them. Next week, we've got a executive pastor who's going to be talking about his experiences, seeing his church go from 0 to live stream. So it's a, really great time. So if you've, again, not subscribed, remember, we are on here every weekday here in April. We'll be giving a new schedule update later. But again, thank you guys for joining us here on the LeCape Livestream podcast. And we will we'll be talking with you soon.